So I'm going to read from a meme here, which we'll get in sort of the ennui, the more metaphysical, what this feeling kind of looks like for a type 1 diabetic if you look at it in an expansive way. And this is for if you told someone that they should be able to eat something, or mastering diabetes, or Gabriel Cousins, or you're telling them they should go on some sort of diet. No diet is right for type 1 diabetes. There's not one universal treatment. So I'm going to go ahead with a meme. When you're craving... Oh. Okay, got it. So I'm going to do two. Me, already low and irritable. The lady who told me I shouldn't eat cupcakes. So the person is already having a low blood sugar. It's life-threatening. If they don't get some glucose, they could end up, passing out, right? They could have seizures. They're gonna, and most type 1 diabetics, it's like, well, I have a low, and someone could be like, oh my goodness, you had a low? Like, oh. There's another funny meme of people sharing. So when I tell my friends I had a low, and then there's like 5 faces like, oh, you had a low. And they're so worried about you. That's when you say it to non-type 1 diabetics. And then when I tell my type 1 diabetic friends that I had a low, and everybody's laughing about it and telling their funny low stories. So the lady who told me I shouldn't eat cupcakes, right? If the person at this point, eating cupcakes becomes their medical treatment, and it's a necessity, and it's so insensitive to be told what to eat. Another one pertains to like diet in general, and these are from Dank Diabetics. Diabetic Memes is one of your memes groups. When you're craving Mexican food on Cinco de Mayo, but your blood sugar is already high. You really wanted to have that carbier food than you normally would be able to, but your blood sugar is already high, so it's best to wait, let the insulin take in. There's other jokes of like, when I secretly take extra insulin so I can have a low to eat more of my candy, right? It's like, haha, kind of diabolic, sinister plot here. So when you're type 1 diabetic, there's all sorts of like treatments, and some of that, in some way, like, pertains to diet, I guess. I mean, really what pertains to diet is carb counting, and you have to have adequate insulin coverage. So if I'm having insulin coverage for a cupcake, I've got to be super honed in. I've got to be dialed in. There's a higher chance if I eat, let's say, 70 grams of carbohydrates from cupcakes, which is like 3 large cupcakes, or two large cupcakes, maybe 3 medium ones, that are pretty sugary, would be 70 grams of carbs. Some people at their meal, they're like, I don't want to fuck with that math. I'm not going to do that. Give me steak and I'll have kale. But I don't want to do that math. When you do the math for the 70 grams, law of small numbers, when you're doing math for a low carbohydrate thing, you had 4 carbohydrates in your meal, and you mess up your insulin dose by 10%, your blood sugar is going to be fine afterwards. But if you're dosing for 70 grams of carbohydrates and you're off by 10%, that could mean you have a low, or it could mean you're high for hours afterwards. And then what do you have to do after a low? You've got to treat that, and then you've got to check again to make sure you didn't overtreat that. And if you overtreat it, you have to have insulin again. And then if you took too much insulin to overtreat it, you could go low again, right? So it's like, this kind of thing. And some people do fine with that. They're like, yeah, I ate the cupcake. You'll see a lot of posts, people being proud. I went to Taco Bell, ate everything I wanted, and they did it. They were completely successful. So you'll see a lot of posts like, look at this ice cream I had, and my blood sugar was fine after that. And then you'll also see regret posts of people wishing they didn't do that because it didn't work out so great for them. Everybody's different, And so, for example, Gabriel Cousins' Simply Raw treatment for diabetes having to do with type 2 diabetes. And he had a lot of cases using raw kind of crazy nutrition stuff. And, why isn't that appropriate for type 1 diabetes? Some say that, for example, the minerals chromium, vanadium, maybe zinc, are required for the utilization of insulin. So if you're deficient in trace minerals like chromium and vanadium, insulin can't be used as effectively for your body. So you become insulin resistant, which is type 2 diabetes. And, that's type 2 diabetes. It's a completely separate kind of thing. So, it's kind of like an illogical argument to say, and this is the same with mastering diabetes. Like, there's a lot of healthy stuff. Mastering diabetes, these guys, they kind of brag, they're type 1s. They brag about how many carbs they can eat in a day. I had 600 grams of fruit and I only needed this much insulin. So they're massively improving their insulin sensitivity and saying that eating the high amount of carb, led to them requiring less amount of insulin. So yeah, that's cool. Whatever, you want to do that, improve your insulin sensitivity. But it doesn't have anything to do with type 1 diabetes. It's not a cure. It's not going to be a rapid turnaround. You're not going to be better if you do mastering diabetes. You might not even be more healthy. And so some type 1 diabetics, they like keto. Some, they like to eat just whatever, just like cover for whatever food they eat. For me, I'm low carb, and interestingly, I like to go on vegan fasts and eat one meal a day that's really high fat vegan kind of. That just really works for me. For some reason, maybe I'm just a little bit sensitive to eating, 4 pounds of bacon in a week and, however much, just meat. I think not everybody's digestive system is the same, so for me, I like to have meals with like sprouts and mushroom sides and ferments and Rejuvelac and teas with like cinnamon and chaga and echinacea and like all these herbs in them. Yeah, that's me. That diet could work for some, and certainly there is research on items that, like, for example, supplements and foods that are beneficial for type 1 diabetics and preventing complications, not for resolving type 1 diabetes. Benfotiamine seems to be a useful vitamin having to do with the usage of insulin also. Beta-alanine is an amino acid with some research on it. Curcumin has benefit specifically for type 1 diabetics. Citrus peel extract, that's, I guess, an important Chinese medicine for regulating qi in the body, is just boiled up orange peel or tangerine peel. And that is useful for type 1 diabetics. I'm not going to go too holistic here, but it's like not a cure, doesn't really change that much, So whether you're doing a meat-based diet, whether you're doing a grain-based diet, whether you're doing what the old school American Diabetes Association would have you do, which is like sometimes make you have an impressive amount of carbs and say that you're starving your brain unless you eat, like, I saw one kid, this was a post online, their endocrinologist was asking them to have 90 grams of carbohydrates at every meal, and it's like they never ate that much carbs. So the type 1 diabetic was having more carbs than the rest of the family. It's like they're feeding them extra pancakes and all the stuff that other type 1 diabetics are more accustomed to saying that's going to mess up your blood sugar. It's going to be tough to do the math on that one. So we're all in different places there. So, yeah, none of these diets has an effect for the type 1 diabetic more than it does on a non-diabetic, right? If you'd say to your friend, I think you should try this. This would be good for you, who's not type 1 diabetic. And you also say to the type 1 diabetic, you say, well, you should, try this diet. I think it's really good for you. That's fairly normal. But then when you say, oh, because you're type 1 diabetic, you should try this diet, then you're getting into problems there, because there's no research to support that. If the diet pertains to blood sugar management, then you could say, this is one way people are treating their blood sugar management. Like you have keto, but then you have Dr. Bernstein. Dr. Bernstein is like basically a keto kind of thing, but it's very specifically geared into normalizing your blood sugar. And so if you say to a type 1 diabetic, it's like, do you like the Dr. Bernstein stuff? Does it seem too extreme? I like the Dr. Bernstein. This is all fairly reasonable. That actually is relevant for the type 1 diabetic. Like why they like or don't like Dr. Bernstein, that's very normal. But if you start quoting Mastering Diabetes, it's like, why are you talking to me about insulin resistance again? How is that relevant to me? That's equally relevant to me as another person. So, yeah, another thing is just general good and bad isms. Eating meat is good or eating meat is bad. Eating this food is good or eating this. All these general rules just don't really apply. I mean, yeah, you could be type 1 diabetic and have a lot of different treatment strategies. So your certificate for having completed this program is now you know when it comes to diet for type 1 diabetes to say nothing, to not advocate for a diet. You're more than welcome to research different blood sugar management approaches. Even endocrinologists disagree. You know, whatever it is, vegan, keto, paleo, low carb, whatever it is. But it's really more about developing comfort with blood sugar management. So, yeah, that might help you be a little bit more informed on why it was a bad idea to give a recommendation for a diet to a type 1 diabetic when it's really not appropriate. So, say nothing is our treatment for you.